Secretary of State must produce the impact assessment that we are calling for today, because all of us are now meeting people who are under such pressure that they are creating more costs elsewhere in the system. I think I will remember probably forever the man I met recently in Redcar, where the great Anatoly introduced us. And actually what he said to me is that, yes, he has a spare room, and do you know what he puts in his spare room? He puts equipment to help him with renal failure. Now, because he is having to move, that opportunity for home care is disappearing. And what does the NHS say to him? Well, we're going to have to take you to and from hospital in an ambulance every single day. That isn't a cost saving for the National Health Service. That is a new cost. It is a straight cost shunt from a failure of policy from this government. I give way to the honourable member.
I'm very grateful to Honourable Judge. But just to clarify, just so there's no uncertainty whatsoever, it is now the policy of a future Labour government to reverse the bedroom tax. I mean, I was under the impression, like the Secretary of State, that the Leader of Opposition said that wasn't the case. Can he just clarify now that the Labour Party, if elected and returned, will abolish the bedroom tax?
We believe the bedroom tax should be dropped, and it should be dropped today. And we believe that it should be dropped because the evidence is mounting that this is going to cost more than it saves.
Points must be allowed to come out in debate, and honourable and right honourable members can speak on their feet but not from their seats. Mr. Liam Byrne.
Mr. Speaker, so we have the issue of the bedroom tax. Then we have the issue of the cash benefits. No, I'm not going to give way to the Secretary of State.
Order. We must proceed. Order. On both sides, we must proceed. Order. We must proceed according to established rules of debate, which include taking interventions or choosing not to do so. But a member cannot intervene, however strongly he or she feels, if the person who has the floor declines to give way. Mr. Liam Byrne.
Secretary of State, if he was so passionately to speak, he should be answering for the Minister this afternoon instead of intervening from a sedentary position. I will give way to the Secretary of State in a moment, because there are a number of other points I want him to... answer. The whole House would wish that he and not the Minister was answering, because it's his failure of leadership at the Department for Work and Pensions that means that disabled people in this country are in such trouble today. Let me turn to the cash commitments that we need to move on to, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State needs to listen to this, because he can't pursue this agenda of denialism right the way through this afternoon. The power of honourable members' contributions, I'm afraid, demands to be listened. Let's just take contributory ESA. This is a benefit that people have paid into, Mr. Speaker, for years. Now, the Conservative Party, particularly the Secretary of State, has never believed in the principle of contributory benefits. By the end of this Parliament, contributory benefits will be no more than a rounding error. 280,000 former workers will, by 2014, have completely lost their entitlement to support worth £100 a week. Thank heavens we won an exemption for cancer patients. But the truth is that those with mental health conditions and other stroke sufferers will be very hard hit by this change. Then we have disability living allowance, and the idea that it should be abolished and replaced by PIP. Now, we believe that reform is important. We welcome the Secretary of State's more sensible rollout plan, but surely it is wrong to take away someone's disability living allowance without even a passing glance at whether the removal of that benefit is going to push someone out of work or push someone into the National Health Service or cause a carer to have to give up a job. These are important safeguards that should have been written into the reform of DLA, and now we have the lunacy of a government actually forced to consult on issues like the 20-metre rule after, not before, but after they introduced the regulations, because they couldn't organise it properly. An utter shambles. Then we have the issue of social care. Mr. Speaker, we welcome the idea of strong social care. I want to pay tribute in particular to my honourable friend for the work that she did and the way that she has influenced the definition of well-being in the care bill that is passing through the other place. But DWP ministers must know that 1/3 of social care users are disabled adults, and we must avoid changes that take that system backwards rather than forwards. There will be other changes that affect carers and children. Carers UK tell us that 3 million carers have had to give up work. 1 in 5 carers see their work badly affected by caring. 4 out of 10 fall into debt. Yet, according to the government's own figures, botched reform to DLA could see another 10,000 carers lose support. Parents of disabled children will suffer too. In fact, parents of 100,000 disabled children will suffer from plans for universal credit. I understand from the Secretary of State's performance in the Select Committee this morning that universal credit is now, after £500 million worth of spending, going to appear in the grand total of 10 job centres from October. I think that is about 1% of job centres. That's a tremendous success for the Secretary of State, only topped by his success in giving us a work programme that is worse than doing nothing. Today, families, Mr Speaker, with disabled children receive an extra £54 a week from child tax credit. That will be reduced by half when universal credit is introduced. That means a loss of around £1,400 a year for a family with a disabled child. £22,000 over the course of a lifetime. Now, the Prime Minister said to the House on the 14th of December, back in 2011, we are not cutting benefits for disabled children. I think Channel 4 Fact Check got it right. The Dial, they said, pretty firmly points to fiction on this one. Now, the tragedy is that so many disabled people want to work, want to get themselves out of poverty, and the government will not help. If someone is on if a single person is on disability benefits, they will be under the poverty line by about £600 a year. Even 3 hours work lifts a disabled person above the poverty line. 30 hours work a week lifts someone above the poverty line by about £5,000 a year. But at the moment we have a situation that is so chaotic that someone going along to a work capability assessment is 8 times more likely to end up in a tribunal than they are in a job. And as for the work programme, words simply fail me. It took some doing, but they did it. They have produced a work programme that is 3 times worse than doing nothing on their own figures. So last year, Mr Speaker, the Chancellor of the Exchequer found the money to hand out a very nice tax cut, a very large tax cut, to some of Britain's richest citizens. And so this year we want to know, what is the Secretary of State going to ask the Chancellor for on behalf of disabled people? We think we should help him get the pitch right. The only way he can get that down accurately is if he brings forward a cumulative impact assessment of the changes now hitting disabled people. How else is he going to know what to ask for? How many disabled people are losing their homes? How many are losing their DLA? How many are losing both their homes, DLA and ESA as well? How many are going to lose carers allowance on top? And how many more disabled people are going to fall into poverty as a result of these sweeping changes over the next couple of years? Surely the Secretary of State cannot justify proceeding with these reforms blind, and surely he can't go into negotiations with the Chancellor later in the year before the autumn statement oblivious to what is actually going on.